Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sean's Check-In. If this is your first time watching, you can catch up on other videos I've done of Sean's Check-In on my Facebook page, Sean P. Daughtry, LICSW, or over on my YouTube channel, Sean's Little Check-In. Today, I wanted to talk about a particular part or perspective that I see comes up in a lot of people. A lot of people carry this certain part or perspective called, often referred to as a pessimist or a pessimistic point of view. And before I launch into that, I just wanted to explain really quickly what I mean by part or perspective. So I am trained in what's called internal family systems. And without going exhaustively into that, I can just tell you briefly that it is a perspective that, first of all, you can look up online and read a lot about. Dr. Richard Schwartz is the originator of it. He discovered it really in his work with people in family systems. But really briefly, what it does posit is that each and every one of us has a core true self that carries many qualities, including clarity, clear perspective, the understanding of the truth within and around oneself, other qualities as well. And then, though, other perspectives or parts come in because of life's difficulties, and those are referred to as parts because they're emotionally laden, they are full of pain, and result in us doing protective things to avoid feeling pain again, that we have felt pain in the past from difficult and often traumatic experiences. So what happens is parts develop that come in and periodically take over our overall perspective. They blend with our core self, and we at times feel we are that outlook or perspective and can't see and feel differently around that. So that all said, the part in terms of what I wanted to discuss today referred to in a general sense as a pessimist or pessimistic point of view, really can develop from difficulties in life. And I want to demonstrate how, in an externalized way, how it can seem and look. And because I come from a theatrical upbringing, I'm going to make use of a bit of a costume piece or prop here, if you will, to make my point. So let's say this black scarf represents a pessimistic, dark, negative point of view. Now, as this scarf is completely over my head and face, wherever I turn and look, and even how I feel, the kind of claustrophobic feel of this scarf, it is clouding or blackening, if you will, my whole perspective. Everything looks around me darkened through this scarf, or if you will, this pessimistic point of view. Now, some people get so blended, if you will, all the time with this kind of point of view, they really feel and believe that this is who they are. Their outlook is this, is that everything is not going to turn out well, there is no hope to be had, and that perhaps even for some folks with this deep pessimistic point of view, that any and all of us can have to some degree, by the way, and that also what can accompany this is a sense of you deserve this hopeless life. You deserve perhaps even punishment related to past punishment you received as a child, which is where pessimism often, if it's very entrenched, it gets internalized in childhood, often from punitive treating parents. I mean, it can come in from a lot of places elsewhere too, not to only simplify it and say that it comes from how you're treated by your parents. It can come in from peer groups early. It can come in from very difficult society around you, if you're a person of color and you've been dealing with racism your whole life starting the day you were born, it can come in from different places where it solidifies as a pessimistic point of view. So how does one deal with this and start to have a different point of view other than such pessimism? First of all, what you start with is labeling it as such. This is a pessimistic point of view. I see and I hear and sense that that's what's coming through, is this pessimistic point of view. You do your best to start to label it and externalize it. That's why, for example, I am doing this right now. I'm externalizing, if you will, this pessimistic point of view and showing that while it's totally wrapped around my head and coloring my whole perspective, it is not actually my physical face and head. It is something different. As you start to do that, you can start to see around and through it. Maybe the pessimist gives you a bit of breathing space, and you can see partly differently part of the time that things do have more hope to them, that hope can actually be felt without the inevitable possibility that the hopes will be dashed, because past experiences have verified that to always have happened for a person. So slowly but surely, you can get some space from it. Now, many of us walk around with some degree of a pessimist around us in our thinking, and within us, I should say. So maybe the pessimist kind of clouds over us momentarily in certain situations that seem all too familiar from the past that brought out a pessimistic point of view. Where, in other words, we may be triggered into a pessimist viewpoint, an outlook and feeling state suddenly that things are just going to fall apart or are falling apart and not going to get better. So this happens to people to varying degrees, even if you just kind of wear a pessimistic point of view like an old headscarf or do-rag or whatever the case may be, where it's ready to come right over your point of view, your eyes, any moment. And then maybe gives you some space as things lighten up around you. So to varying degrees, it's very easy to carry a very negative, pessimistic point of view. Again, some people really kind of are led by it and live from that point of view. And that's very, painful and difficult to witness. So how do we get past, after, labeling it, or even how do we get to labeling it? How do we start to do that and externalize it and then eventually get space from it and more see it as a separate perspective from us and see it really for what it is and even where it came from in our lives and how it's something we don't have to continue to carry? Well, there's a lot of different steps to do that. Depending on how entrenched it is for you, psychotherapy may be indicated, where you have a steady, regular place to go to rigorously work on separating yourself from this negative, pessimist perspective. Internal family systems is obviously, from what I believe from my training, a very good approach to do that. EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is another method to help target out specific events that happened in your life where the pessimistic point of view was instilled in you to start with. Sometimes that can be pretty apparent. Other times it may not be such an obvious set of events or single event. It's usually never just a single event from what I've noticed with people. So those are some approaches I know of. There are other psychotherapy approaches too that people have found helpful. And also too, it's important as best as possible to consciously, as much as you can within your control, shift your environment. Surround yourself with loving people that carry a more positive perspective and don't participate in any way in reinforcing the negative pessimistic point of view that you are so used to carrying. It really does make a difference to surround yourself consciously and intentionally with other people that are more realistically, not Pollyannish, because then that can be its own other part, a whitewashing Pollyannish part that does not acknowledge and take in the reality of the hardships of life and the difficulties and pains that come up in life. That's a skewed other point of view in its own right. But an inherently positive point of view that emphasizes your own strengths and your own core true self, that is indeed a clear thinking perspective, that sees things truly as they are, that sees the inherent natural goodness in oneself and others that can be found there, that comes from a place of living from the heart, which I can go into in the future, what I mean by heart-centeredness and heart consciousness. I can elaborate on that another time. But it is a combination of likely seeking help, intentional mental health help, and or seeking people and places and contexts to be around that foster a more lighter, positive outlook, and that does not reinforce this ongoing pessimistic view that so many of us to varying degrees carry around with us as if it's this permanent fixture and aspect of just who we are, which it is truly not. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you soon in another check-in.